Your draft moment is a unique one because, of all people, the man who went up on stage is none other than Pat McAfee, and it was a doozy to say the least.
I loved it. I feel like it's almost like a prophecy that I have to live up to, like future Hall of Famer. He went on a long tirade, roasting the orangutan from last year. That definitely set me on a great start for the NFL.
Joining us today, he is one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL, now in his 6th NFL season, second with the Giants, a team captain. It is Bobby Okereke. Bobby, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Good, Ari. How we doing, brother? Appreciate you.
I'm doing great, man. Listen, this show is the NFL Spotlight Show. We love putting a spotlight on people in the NFL who really are underappreciated and really don't get the respect they deserve. And you've had a great career so far. Second year of the Giants, 3 straight years of 130 plus tackles. I really just want to get into just how you even got into football, because your story, your family background is a very unique one compared to really every other NFL player. I guess let me just start. Like, how did you get into football, and when did you know that you really have a shot at being an NFL player?
I started playing my freshman year of high school, and it was really just from buddies I played with, buddies I played baseball with, buddies I went to middle school with. Everybody was playing Pop Warner, and they were telling my parents to get me to come try out, tell me to come try out, but my parents were pretty hesitant. Obviously, the misconception that you're going to play football, you're going to get hurt, you're going to break something. People get hurt for sure, but my parents being Nigerian American, they wanted me to play soccer, and I started playing baseball. I was pretty good at that, but freshman year came out, started playing football, and then fell in love with it. I was playing defensive end and tight end first, and by my senior year, I'm playing wildcat quarterback and X wide receiver. Like, I just love playing football. And then freshman year at Stanford, that was my first time playing linebacker. And it was probably like my junior year, maybe my redshirt junior year in college. That's when I probably had the realization that I was good enough to play in the NFL. Always wanted to get better. Always loved lifting weights, drills. Like, I loved just seeing me like actualize my improvement. But after my redshirt junior year, started getting some looks from scouts, and people were like, you maybe got a shot to get drafted. So after that, I would just put all my eggs in the basket, and I was ready to go.
Yeah. So how did you like land on linebacker? You mentioned all these positions you were doing, wildcat quarterback and all that. Like, how did you settle on middle linebacker, which is a tough position? Not only a tough position, but you're basically in every play. You're tackling and all of that. Like, how did you land on that position?
Literally. I got to shout out my inside linebacker coach. He actually wasn't there my freshman year, but he recruited me, David Katolski at Stanford. When I went to the Stanford camp my senior year, he put me at linebacker. And yeah, I guess he saw my athleticism, he saw my length, he saw how smart I was, and he was like, yeah, this guy's going to make a hell of a linebacker.
So, you mentioned we mentioned before how you are really one of the more surest tacklers in the NFL. I mentioned how you've had 130 plus tackles in each of the last 3 years. What makes an elite tackler? Like, sometimes we watch football on Sundays and we see some of the like weirdest missed tackles. Like, I think about the Eagles-Bucks playoff game, which was a disaster for the Eagles defense. Like, what makes an elite tackler and what makes you so good at it?
I had a coach, he said tackling's 2 things, technique and desire. So first of all, it's great technique. Running 3 hard steps to your man, whether you're wrapping around his waist or his hamstrings, driving your feet on contact, having good contact balance, being able, strong lower body, all that stuff. But really desire, the desire you play the game of football with to get that man on the ground. That's what differentiates people. So I feel like I got great technique, great desire, and I'm just a hell of an athlete.
You definitely are. Now, one of the things that I think most fans didn't realize about you, at least last season, is that you played every single defensive snap in 2023. That was 1,128 out of 1,128. Not many players could say that. Are you aware of that as the season goes on? And do you make it a point in your mind to say, like, I'm not leaving the field?
For sure. I mean, I think people started telling me that maybe like halfway through after the bye week, like, you haven't missed a snap. And I mean, I had a couple injuries. Like, I had I dislocated my pinky, had like a little stress fracture on that. I broke a rib. But that was just even more incentive. Like, nah, I'm not coming out. Obviously, like, if I can't play well and other guys on the team can play well. I want the team to win, but as long as I could play well and produce and make plays for the team, I knew I wasn't coming off the field.
Now, I've heard you say this. I heard you say this in a press conference that you love being in coverage, you love interceptions, you love pass deflections, and all of that. Playing in the NFL now, 5 years going into year six, who would you say has been the toughest quarterback you've had to face, and who has been toughest pass catcher you've had to go up against?
Mm. Toughest pass catcher, Travis Kelce for sure. Just his savviness, the way he sits in zones, the way he's be able to manipulate coverage and his body movement. He's a very savvy football player, and he's going to go down as a great for sure. And then from a quarterback perspective, two guys. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and has been in the league for a while. His arm talent is crazy. And Matthew Stafford. I think he's just a machine. He's got an incredible arm, and just the way he runs his play action, the way he runs that offense, the way his checks. It's old school football.
Yeah, you guys obviously played against Matthew Stafford last year. I'm sure you played against Aaron during his time in Green Bay. I'm picturing this situation for you where whenever your career is over, and hopefully it's after a decade plus, there's going to be like this tribute video for you. And the beginning of the video is you getting drafted. And your draft moment is a unique one because of all people, the man who went up on stage is none other than Pat McAfee, and it was a doozy to say the least. How often does that come up to you, and what did you think of that initially when you were watching that obviously very special moment in your life?
I loved it. I feel like it's almost like a prophecy that I have to live up to, like future Hall of Famer. So it's exciting. It's exciting for fans as I'm getting better and better. Aiming to make a Pro Bowl, aiming to make first team All Pro. But yeah, getting drafted by Pat McAfee, he's an electric human being. His show and his personality is doing so well just because of how genuine he is. Obviously, he had a great career, but he went on a long tirade roasting the orangutan from last year, who had the same pick. But he's an incredible personality, and that definitely set me on a great start for the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, people still play that video every draft now because there's guests that come up for the second and third round. They always show that clip in particular. And of course, you're the player who was drafted and you've had a great career so far. But fast forward a couple months later, so you get drafted in April of 2019. Your quarterback, Andrew Luck, abruptly retires a few months later, which is crazy. What do you remember about just how insane that was and how it kind of shook up the entire NFL?
Yeah, it was nuts. Obviously, Andrew was like an older brother to me. The way I looked up to him, the success he had being another Stanford guy. So I was there in the offseason. He was nursing that injury, so I didn't get to see him play, but was very hopeful for season to come around. And I don't remember if it was our second preseason game or what, but we just started hearing fans talking from the side. Like, we were all just in the unknown. And fans are talking, and they're saying like, "Whoa, is Andrew retiring? Like, what's going on? Do you guys know?" And like, we're hearing it first from them. I guess Schefter tweeted something, and they're all on their phones and social media. So we started hearing it, and then I know Andrew walked off the field, and security guards kind of ushered him through. And after that, it was like the loudest booing that ensued, and it was pandemonium. The emotions, the frustration, anger, sadness, the people in the locker room after, like, it was crazy. It felt like pandemonium, honestly. It was crazy.
Is there anything about those next couple of days that I guess the public doesn't know about that has not come out? Like, people have tried to report about this story, but Andrew has literally gone, like, nobody has found him since he retired. Like, is there anything that anyone knows about what happened those following days after it became public?
No crazy insight. I mean, Andrew was an incredibly smart guy. His career, the trajectory he was on, he was going to be a Hall of Famer easily. Just such a talented guy, such a smart guy. But I think he just, in that moment, truly advocated for himself. And I think that's just kind of a domino effect of athletes understanding that, we all love this game, and, we play it because it helps us provide for our families and brings us joy and happiness. But at the end of the day, you got to prioritize your physical and mental, spiritual health, whatever it may be, because this is a physical, dangerous game.
Absolutely. So that's how your career started. A crazy way to start. And you go through 4 years in Indianapolis. You had a great linebacker next to you of Darius Shaquille Leonard. You finished those 4 years. He was obviously highly paid. You had another linebacker there who was up and coming, which ultimately made you become a free agent for the first time. Could you go into what free agency is like? Because I remember yours, you were probably ranked by most people as the second best linebacker on the market. And there was talk about Chicago because Matt Eberflus was there. There's talk about the Giants. What is free agency like, for, not just for a player, but a player who's going to be coveted?
It's a good spot to be in. If you're going to be coveted, if you're the top guy, top two or three in your position group, it's an exciting time because you really get to sit there and, select the best offer. I mean, you saw guys last year, like on my team, Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles, gets a big contract. Xavier McKinney goes to the Packers, gets a $17 million a year contract. If you're a young guy and you put together a good body of work in your rookie contract, you're going to have a lot of suitors, and it's a lot of people who want to pay you a lot of money and are really want your experience. It's kind of like college football recruiting all over again. So it's exciting, but it's a lot of unknown, and there's all these projections and all these talks and conversations. But once that free agency deadline hits and people start putting their money where their mouth is, that's when stuff gets real and dominoes start falling quick. I remember everyone was kind of sitting around, and I have some buddies who were in free agency too, and we're talking and oh, what are you thinking about where you might want to go? How's your experience been? And TJ Edwards is the first guy to signed with the Bears, 6.5. And so whatever you thought the market was just set right there. And so now it's like everybody kind of has to fall in line, and it was an interesting time.
So obviously, TJ went to Chicago, Tremaine went to Chicago on a big deal. You end up with the Giants on a big deal as well. Is there I guess what is like the biggest difference you've felt from Indianapolis to now being in New York, which is a big media market? Like, is it as big as they say? Did you really feel that?
100%. Just the volume of reporters, the volume of fans at training camp, on social media, at games, walking around New York City. It is just an influx of attention and motion, and it's exciting for sure. It can be overwhelming. It's just a lot going on. So, when people say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I understand what they mean.
No, absolutely. I'm actually here from New York, and like you're right, the spotlight is definitely bigger. And you were one of the few big time bright spots, I would say, last season. But going into 2024, does it bother you a little bit that everyone is talking about the Eagles and the Cowboys and Washington? Not many people are talking about what the Giants could do. And you guys made some additions on defense, new defensive coordinator. Is that something that bothers you? Are you okay with it? Like, how do you feel about that?
I love it. It gives us a big chip on our shoulders. It motivates us, and I think that's our personality and that's our persona this year. We're that young, scrappy, pissed off team. We know we can be great. Everyone's counting us out. So yeah, we're gonna surprise some people. We're gonna make a great run.
Now, you mentioned this player before. Your first game against Saquon Barkley is going to be in Week 7 at MetLife. Everyone has been watching Hard Knocks, and really they're giving us a behind-the-scenes look at how all these negotiations happen and the behind the closed doors of what the front office was saying and how he ended up going to Philadelphia. Are you looking forward to that game? And what did you think of the fact that one of your key players is now in your division? You'll be facing him twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It speaks volumes to the business of the NFL. Obviously, I went through that similar experience in Indianapolis. They decided not to give me an offer and let me go. And I went somewhere else that I felt was the best decision for me. So, I can sympathize and empathize with both sides. Like, I know Joe Shane and Mr. Mara and Coach Dave's, they have an organization they have to run. And there's only so much cap space available, and it's puzzle pieces you're trying to put together, and you're trying to look at all this data and justify things regardless of how you internally feel. And Saquon, who, became a brother to me, one of the best football leaders I'd ever seen, special football player in himself, to understand the emotion he was going through, not just at that time, but a couple of years before, getting franchise tagged, and just it's a lot. We play this game because we love it, and it helps put food on the table for our families. But it's tough. It's a very passionate game. It takes a lot of emotion. So I understand both sides for sure.
Is it difficult for you? Like, we always talk about the business of football. People who cover the league understand it, but the fans don't truly understand how much it matters for you guys as players to get that second contract. And like, they don't view it the right way. Do you feel like there's any, and you're so well spoken, you understand the business really well. Do you feel like there's any way of changing that narrative where the public, the average fan doesn't take it the wrong way, where they're always looking at it in a negative way, the way Saquon, everyone's talking about him? Is there any way of changing that? Because these players, you guys are looking for that second contract. It's important to you. You want to get the most money, but the fans aren't looking at it that way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think it's just awareness and exposure. We all know that we can only play this game of football for so long, and you could have one injury, and you're either not the same player when you come back, or your career might be over. So, an opportunity for a second contract, a big contract, is huge, and that money is what you're gonna, put in your kids' college tuition, or whatever fund that you might set up for your family going forward. Like, you got to think about those decisions. And it's akin to college football. The same way, I remember when Christian McCaffrey sat out his junior year in our bowl game. Everybody was giving him crap. Everybody was talking shit on him and saying he didn't care about the team and this and that. And now you look at the landscape and the climate, and guys don't even play in that last college football game. And obviously Reggie Bush, his situation of NIL and whatever transpired, and he lost his Heisman Trophy for it. And now NIL kids are getting NIL deals in high school. So I think it's just one of those things. Some people have to carry that torch for the people in the generation going forward. So I think Saquon made the best decision for himself, and I can only respect that.
Christian McCaffrey example is a great one because I think of a player like who played your position, Jalen Smith, who of course played in a bowl game, got injured, severe knee injury, fell to the second round. He did end up getting a second contract, but his career was never the same after that injury. And that's the thing that fans definitely miss. A couple more things here. I think you entered the league when we were still in a 16 game schedule. We've already went up to 17. There's talk about going up to 18. What are your thoughts about that possibly happening while your playing career is still going on?
I think it's interesting. I mean, obviously the NBA plays however many 100 games,
It's
but
different.
big guys like LeBron James, Steph Curry, they're not playing every game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you want to start expanding the schedule, then, we might get to that type of system where guys aren't playing every game. You're picking and choosing. You're, kind of setting up your battles. So things can change that way as well. And it's also leverage. Okay, if you guys want an extra game, if ownership and commissioner, whoever wants another game, then okay, now what is an incentive that you can give the players, whether it's rights to some of this, like, I mean, gambling is a big thing. Everybody's sponsored by DraftKings or FanDuel now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, can players get a pot of that? Or can players get a pot of, Budweiser commercials or Miller Lite or whatever? Like, I think it's all leverage and incentives. So, hopefully, NFLPA does a great job, can come to the table, and we'll work something out.
Yep, nothing could change unless the NFLPA approves it, and the CBA doesn't expire until 2031, I believe. But it is something that Roger Goodell has come out publicly to say, and whenever Roger says something publicly, it's usually because he wants it to happen sooner than later. All right, Bobby, I know you stay busy off the field with some other ventures. Could you just tell me a little bit about Presidential Travel Services and what you're doing with them? Because I looked it up before we did this interview. It's pretty impressive, I got to say.
Appreciate it, brother. So I got a black car chauffeur service in Miami, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. I have my business partner, Sarah Singley. She runs it out there for me. Shout out to her. But yeah, we got two amazing Escalades. We got a 2023 tan ESV Sport. We got a 2024 black Escalades with the 4G Auto rims. And we rent it out as a chauffeur service. Rent it out for a couple hours. I mean, we've had people rent it out for 10 hours a day. We got a driver for you. He'll drop you off, take you to your house, your hotel, drop you off at the boat dock, drop you off at restaurants, clubs, whatever you want to do. They'll run errands for you, give him some money. He'll go to the grocery store. Like, it's a full concierge service. And I mean, we'll help you guys get reservations into, Prime 112, Nobu, some of the best restaurants and clubs in Miami. So just trying to cater to people who want that VIP service in Miami.
It's really cool stuff. We're going to include the links in the description for everyone to check it out because it really is impressive stuff. And congratulations on getting that started and where it's at right now. One more thing here before the final question. Like, I know you're already starting your other ventures. Do you ever think about going into, I don't know, media or politics or something? Because you really are a well-spoken person.
Appreciate it. I've thought about politics for a while.
Really?
I mean, if I was in second grade and you asked me what I wanted to be, I probably would have told you president of the United States. But yeah, I feel like politics. I mean, I have the mindset of giving back. I was in Boy Scouts growing up. I got my Eagle Scout award, and I mean, a staple for me was community service projects. Whether I'm building directory display maps at my church, or helping build bridges or benches in parks, or going to homeless shelters and feeding. Like that's just near and dear to me. So any way that I can make a positive impact, it's going to be very fulfilling.
I mean, it would not surprise me if you do go into that eventually, whenever your career is over, if you want to, because I really do believe you could. All right, last thing, I asked this question to every guest on this podcast. It's the NFL Spotlight Show. We put people in the spotlight who deserve more recognition. Player, coach, executive, whoever you want. Who do you think should be in this seat in the future?
I'm torn. Can I give you two?
Give me two. Let's get two.
I mean, Zaire Franklin, like the dude sets franchise tackle record year after year. In a phone booth, I don't know anybody who hits harder than this guy. Like he is what it means to be a true linebacker, and I think he's only going to get better and better. I learned a lot from him with my time in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And shout out TJ Edwards. I mean, I think it's funny that as you play in your career and you're trying to get better and you're making plays, like there's always names and guys you see around you at the top producing year after year. And this is a guy that was undrafted and just grinded his whole career. Obviously, to see him get the contract in Chicago, I think he's only going to get better and better and, be in the argument for one of the best linebackers in this league at one point in time.
Those are two amazing people. Zaire got paid this offseason. TJ, of course, won a Super Bowl, got paid in Chicago as well. Those are two guys who we definitely should consider to have on this show. But Bobby, I want to thank you for coming on, going over your career, your story, putting you a little bit in the spotlight here. I really, really appreciate it. And best of luck here as you go into your second year with the New York Giants. And go try to prove some people wrong.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Special thanks to New York Giants linebacker Bobby Okereke for joining us here on the show this week. He was our third guest. Of course, we had Levante David week 1, Darren Rizzi week 2, Bobby Okereke was week 3. I thought this interview was amazing. Like I told him, he could be in the media if he wants it. He wants to go into politics, go right ahead. He is somebody who is very, very well spoken. And he did mention Zaire Franklin as a player who should be on the show. I do love that pick, and we are definitely going to be reaching out to Zaire. Would not surprise me if he ends up being a guest here on the show very, very soon.